Shwmae, Siddachi, Croeso, Chris, Dewey, what is cracking, ladies, gents, boys, girls, and anybody who likes fighting fantasy. Today we are talking about Armies of Death, written by Ian Livingstone and published by Puffin in the late 80s. Apologies if I don't sound the same. I'm quite unwell at the moment. I don't know what's wrong with me. It's not the it's not that. I'm pretty okay. It's just I'm all blocked up. So, without further ado, let's talk about Armies of Death. So, like I said, this book was published by Puffin back in '88, and then it was republished by Wizards in the early 2000s. And the thing about Armies of Death is that the focus is on armies. You have an army. You actually have to engage with other armies with your army. There's like army v army combat. On top of that, this one is also a direct sequel to Trial to Champions. You are using your winnings to buy an army to challenge another guy's army. It's all pretty good. So I am going to read the back of the book because presumably it's the same across all versions. It says, Aglax the Shadow Demon is amassing his army of undead warriors to conquer Alanzia. Having survived the perils of Death Trap Dungeon, you set off from Fang with over 200 veteran soldiers to fight his army. But the Shadow Demon is not of this world, and special powers are needed to destroy him. And the longer you spend searching for these powers, the stronger he will become. Now that does sound pretty cool, in all fairness. That sounds pretty awesome. But this is the thing, it sort of hypes up the army kind of thing. And it's not that good, to be honest. The army v army combat isn't that good. But that's going to be something I will address later. But for now, I think we should maybe look at some covers, because that's something that I quite enjoyed doing. So let's look at some covers. Here we go. So the first cover by Puffin is actually pretty awesome. You got like the red background, it looks scary, it looks menacing. You got this dude holding a flag, like a flag bearer. In all honesty, it looks like the old Warhammer arts, you know, the fight, what's it called? Warhammer Fantasy back when, before Age of Sigmar. It looks like that. It looks like the old art style. It's amazing. This cover's actually really, really cool. And in all honesty, this is probably... I don't want to spoil it, but this is a really, really good cover. I love it. I love the art style. I love the red. I love the colours. I love the composition. I love all of it. It's a really cool cover. You got like this goblin dude with a shield, with his flag, with a skull on top. It's even got like It's even got a crown, so you know this guy. They've killed a king. Or queen. It's really, really cool though. I really do like the Puffin version. I think the Puffin's cover definitely was probably the best one, in my honest opinion. But how can we say that without looking at the Wizards cover? So I think it's about time that we move on to the Wizards cover. So let's jump into it. So I'm holding the Wizards. I'm holding a copy of the Wizards version in my hand, and I don't really like the cover. It looks a bit silly, to be honest. The orcs, the goblins look a bit silly. In all honesty, if you've watched the old Willy Wonka film where they just take little people and paint them up orange, the goblin dudes sort of look like that, but they've been painted up green. It's sort of, I don't know if it's offensive, you know. It feels like they wouldn't be able to do this today, or they'd have to give them a better design. But yeah, I don't know. It's very reminiscent of that early 2000s cover art that I used to get on like the young adults fantasy books or sci-fi, like Doctor Who, Darren Shan, all that stuff. But at the same time, it's still a bit silly. It's not really my cup of tea. You know, you got these orcs, you got this guy who's, I can't tell if he's enjoying it or if he's hating it or if he's alive or dead. It's really quite cringe. It's horribly cringe actually. But then the art style also, it goes back onto the spine of the book. You can't really see anything special, but yeah, it sort of it portrays the enemy forces as this overwhelming force. It portrays them as something quite menacing, you know, but they also look ridiculous. So unfortunately, this spoilers, I don't really like the Wizards cover. It's always been one of those books I've been aware of, but before I started doing these videos, I never really bothered getting it because of how silly it looked. But yeah, there is also a Wizard Shield edition, but I am pretty sure it's just a guy who's dying. His face, yeah, it looks kind of cringe, in all honesty. The thing is, right, when they republished all the Wizard books with the Shield covers, I was so tempted to start like collecting them again, but it just looked kind of ugly. and that's the thing. It might be your kind of aesthetic, and I'm not gonna judge. I'm not gonna criticize. Everyone's entitled to their own tastes, but I never liked them, you know. So yeah, I'm gonna have to say the Puffin one comes first. The Puffin one is awesome. You cannot fault the Puffin cover. It is amazing. But then the Wizards cover, I know it's just weak. It is very weak. It looks like something from early Doctor Who, you know, David Tennant, that era. It's just a weak looking cover. I don't like it. They've all got massive foreheads. It looks slightly offensive. Yeah, it's not my cup of tea, but it is what it is at the end of the day. What can you do? So I think it's about time that we talk about what actually happens in the book, like, because the book's actually alright. The adventure's really quite fun. It's interesting. It's quite it's more interesting than a lot of other books, should I say, maybe? I don't know. But yeah, so when you start reading this book, what really happens? What really happened for me, really, I just got on a ship. And yeah, that's about it. I just sailed somewhere. And what you're going to find out is there's a lot of like army combat mingled in with player versus like NPC combat. So 1 minute you might be controlling your elves, you might be like telling them to fire upon another ship. Or it might be you versus like a goblin and you have to slay them yourself. And this is really the thing, because at the end of the day, it really feels reminiscent. It's a traditional fighting fantasy book at the end of the day, with like an underdeveloped army v army system, because the army v army kind of system, for me, I expected it to be something else, you know, maybe like I totally just kicked something over, sorry about that. But yeah, I expected the army combat to be reminiscent of player v AI combat, where you've got your army's skill and stamina versus the enemy's skill and stamina, but instead of like 6, it'd be like 600 or 6,000. And I don't know how that would work on it. Well, it would work on a dice, because you just roll it and then times it by 1,000, but that's the thing, really. It wasn't like that at all. The combat in this one, the combat is the same when it's like player v AI, but when it's army v army, it's like roll the dice to see how many of them survive, and it's really boring. It's like, if my soldiers are elite soldiers, why are they just getting no scope for goblins and whatnot? I don't get it. But aside from a very underwhelming army versus army combat system, the story is actually pretty good. In fact, the story is very reminiscent, and the structure of the story is very reminiscent to that of City of Thieves. Now, if you know me, I absolutely adore City of Thieves, and maybe that's why I quite enjoyed this book, to be honest. It left me, once I finished this book, I felt quite happy. I was like, oh boys, that was a really good adventure. And that is because it is very much sort of the same structure as City of Thieves, exactly like I just said. You know, it's like AC/DC songs, they all have like the same few chords. It's like that. It's exactly like that with City of Thieves and Armies of Death, except you have the army, like the army versus army system forced on it, and then you have to recruit troops. It is a really nice little story, actually, and I didn't realise how much alike it was to City of Thieves until just now. So I think it's about time to start talking about the characters, because whatever I've got right now has turned me into an honorary mouth breather. This is you have no idea how difficult this is, being unable to breathe from your nose. So the characters are actually pretty cool. There's a really nice cameo from Ian Livingstone, and he plays a guy called Aubergy, I think his name is, or Aubergy. The name, I don't know how to say it, doesn't matter, but it's a nice little cameo because he shows you like a portrait of like his crew on the ship, and all of them are like people who are presumably his friends in real life, or were his friends back in the 80s. It was actually a really touching little tribute to them. I really enjoyed it. I did really enjoy that, and that's the thing with fighting fantasy books. When they have little cameos like that, it's very much like a Stan Lee moment from the Marvel Universe, where like Stan Lee would be in Spider-Man being in a library or something like that. It's really cool, it's really nice. It's actually something I really appreciate when authors put themselves into the books as a cameo. But aside from that, there is one other character that I really quite liked, and her name was Max, and she's like this leader of mercenaries, and she's really cool. She is like a certified badass character, and I'm not gonna spoil too much about her, but she is cool, and you're gonna see that she's cool throughout the book. And that's the thing with this book. I don't know, it seems weird that there are so many like tidy characters, like memorable characters, and like you'll be reading other books and you'll be like, oh yeah, this character is very reminiscent of that character. And I just really enjoyed it. It's something quite special, because when it comes down to these books, like, you know, Forest of Doom, I can't really remember any characters from that. Literally none, actually. And although I do rag on Forest of Doom quite a lot, that's the thing really. With this book, you have a nice, interesting roster of characters, and there's memorable locations. And this is the thing, I don't want to go into too much of it because I will spoil it all. And that ultimately is the thing. When it comes down to Final Fantasy books, at the end of the day, it is an adventure game book. You are playing it yourself. And with this one, there's so many just fun things to do. And I suppose maybe the ending's quite conveyed. You sort of figure out what you're going to have to do about halfway through when you get to the city. And it's not bad, but like I said, you know, that is quite reminiscent of City of Thieves, when your whole goal is to get to the city itself, find out what you need to do, and then go do it. It's sort of, if you read the books side by side somehow, you're going to see there are so many like similarities. And I don't know if it was done because City of Thieves is actually really good. I don't actually know how City of Thieves was received. In my opinion, it's really, really good. But with this story, there's a lot of charm to it. There's a lot of similar structuring in the sense that, yeah, your goal is to get to the city, find out what you need to do, and go do it. But like, that's the thing with this one, it's just really charming. There's loads of cute moments, there's loads of charming moments, there's fun moments. There's a point where you go to like a pet shop and there's like some sort of Great Dane kind of creature mixed with like a grasshopper, and it's just really interesting, really cool. There's a Big Belly Man character, and his name is literally the Big Belly Man, and that's just amazing. It's the sort of thing you'd come up with when you're like 5 and there's a big boy walking down the street and you're like, Mama, who's that? And she'll say, oh, it's a Big Belly Man, he'll eat you if you misbehave. You're like, oh, don't eat me. It's just really cool, and that's the thing with the Armies of Death. I think the story is actually just really good. It's a good story, it's a good, like, the only downside to this is the disappointing army versus army combat thing. And that ultimately is the only disappointing thing, because in my eyes, I was going to put this down as like a 5-star on Goodreads, but then I was like, for a book to hype yourself up about being an army, there's not like a whole lot of interesting stuff that happens with the army. I found it quite boring, I found it quite tedious. I found the army like management system to be quite annoying at the end of the day. It's like, why are they drinking from poisoned water? What do I do now? Do I just carry them with me? How are they poisoned? In which way? But the book doesn't tell you, and that's the thing. If they were just poisoned and like they're throwing up, they've got like it's coming out both ends, then yeah, just let them recover where they are. If it's poison, like they're all just like suddenly fatigued, then no, they can probably walk it off. And this is the thing, it doesn't describe a lot of it. So when you're trying to manage your army, you're only given the bare minimum details. And I think as if you were in charge of an army yourself, you'd have like maybe like an advisor go out and actually see what's wrong, and then come back to you, tell you what's actually wrong, rather than you just standing on a rock and like being like, oh, those guys are poorly, I'm gonna leave them there. It's like, I don't know, I honestly feel as if the army mechanic needed a lot of more depth, because they simplified it, but then they got books like Creature of Havoc where every single reference requires like you to do maths and like just refer back to previous reference. It's just annoying, it's tediously difficult. With this one though, it really could have done with a bit more difficulty, because yeah, in the City of Thieves it's an easy book. In this one, it's an easy book with an oversimplified army mechanic. And I think that if it maybe had a tougher army mechanic where maybe you have to work up morale, very similar to how you do stuff in like Warhammer, then it could have been really good. You know, you could have had to put your spearmen up against their spearmen and decide who's done the most damage, or like archers versus their spearmen before they hit yours to work out. But that's the thing really, this book either could have been super complicated and really annoying, or they could have just made the combat really simple to the point where it's not really that much of a big part of the story. And I suppose that's my criticism really. The army mechanic doesn't seem that important to the story. And I have a feeling I'm sort of digressing and losing track of what I'm trying to say. My main criticism for this book ultimately is that the army mechanic is so simplified that it's almost trivial. Like, there is no real reason for the army to be there, because in the previous books you've gone and defeated greater enemies, you've faced bigger risks without an army. But then in this one you have an army of like sort of plebs who just don't know how to scratch their own buttons, and then it's sort of like, well, I know I could do this without you guys, so why are you here? And yeah, and that's really it, you know. For a book that sold itself really on you get to control an army, The whole controlling an army thing is quite boring, it's quite simple, it's just too trivial for the book. It's not really a lasting thing that you remember once you finish the book. You sort of go, oh yeah, I did this, and you completely forget about your army. So that's sort of it really, guys, that's sort of it. So in conclusion, the characters in this book are quite fantastic. The story itself, the adventure, is superb, really good. It's just let down by the fact that the army mechanic's too simple to really matter. Like, there's a point where, like, roll the dice if it's 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 1 to 2, 2 to 4, or 4 to 6. Depends on how many people you lose. And it's like, well, if they're my guys and I'm meant to be leading them, then why am I not, like, telling them to do better stuff, like more intelligent things? Because then you might just lose 40 of them. It's like, well, okay, I guess I'll just go game over then. Thanks, guys. And this is it. The book itself is really good. It's just let down by the army mechanic. That's really it, guys. And I suppose that's it in summary. You've listened to me ramble on for about, what, 15 minutes, even though I'm quite unwell. And yeah, I'm gonna have to say thank you for that one. I'm gonna say thank you. If this video, once I recover properly, I will try and rewatch this video. I say I will try, like my life's busy. I'll rewatch this video, maybe have to redo it, and then I'll have like a double or triple upload. I don't know. Depends how it goes. So yeah, that's it, ladies and gents. I want to say thank you for putting up with me this week, because this video is quite rough. I feel rough. The gameplay is going to be quite rough. All in all, rough out of 10. But yeah, thanks for watching the video, guys. I hope you have a really, really nice day. As always, I just hope that your existence is nice. I hope that you don't have to go through any hardships, and that any hardships that you're going through are close to the end, you know? So without further ado, take care, thanks for watching, and